Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Tuesday morning. College football, man, yesterday was buyout. Sunday, Monday, a lot of discussion about Texas A&M getting rid of Jimbo Fisher. Long overdue. But how does Ross Bjork survive? How does he still have a job, man? The real world doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, Texas A&M, for their fans who are among the most loyal group of people on the planet, they have to watch as their school, the 12th Man Foundation and all, just spends money like the federal government. You know, they, again, $76 million to make a head football coach, Jimbo Fisher, go away. After 6 years, his record wasn't even as good as Kevin Sumlin. And I think Kevin Sumlin got 20 or 25 million. But either way, it's disgusting. So the fans, again, are getting screwed in all this stuff. They're still going to be asking everybody to pay through the nose for season tickets, for priority seating, and all that stuff. And then they're going to hit you up, oh, yeah, for NIL. You know, what about taking care of your own children? See, this is what we got to be really careful of. And again, Ross Bjork has a great future as a poker player, because to keep a straight face when you are saying what you were saying about, the 12th Man Foundation, we have to keep in mind of budgets and all. I mean, how did he not stop, just burst out laughing? He still has a job. Okay. Mississippi State. We said it all year long. That was coaching malpractice, what was going on there. Coach Matt Dean's going to join us here in just a few minutes. Looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. Jacques Doucet down in Baton Rouge will check in with us as well. WAFB Channel 9. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers the Georgia Bulldogs for us. They're looking like they're going to three-peat. I'm going to tell you one thing. They absolutely body slammed Ole Miss. And now you got to wonder for Lane Kiffin, is he, hey, is this as good as I can do? I mean, they're going to end up winning 10 or 11 games. And you know what? He didn't beat Alabama. He didn't beat Georgia. But other than Texas, nobody else is beating them either. I mean, you're looking at just a run of unprecedented historical significance of what's going on with Georgia and Alabama in college football. You got to go back into the 30s when Minnesota won 3 straight national championships, but 2 of them were before we had the Associated Press poll, which did not come about until 1936. Okay? So think about all the changes that have happened in college football since then. Could you imagine this Georgia football team playing any of those 3 Minnesota teams? It wouldn't even be a fair fight. I mean, obviously the kids today are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. It's unbelievable. And it's a different world that we live in, but the money. I think what's going on is you're seeing a bit of a reset. You're seeing a bit of a reset in college football. You really are. And that is financially. The free market is working this stuff out, and it's working it out right in front of us. There's only so many times you can go to the fans and ask them for this kind of money. So you start looking around at what's going on in college athletics. The money and everything that everybody's asking for, it is historical in significance. How much people are asking for, and I'm telling you, the fans don't have to support it. What A&M needs to watch out for is, are their fans going to just say, you know what, we're going to boycott you? This is the kind of stuff that'll have to happen. But $76 million and people say flippantly, yeah, I know they make a lot of money on oil and gas, revenue in the state of Texas. All right. I know they do. But I'll tell you what, that's still real money. And somebody has to pay for it. Okay. And that's the fans. I mean, you're $76 million, and they're saying that it's going to be private. And, I mean, look, we all know the state of Texas gives 2/3 of the oil and gas money every year to the University of Texas. They give 1/3 to Texas A&M. How much money you think that is? I'm sure it's public record. It's public money. But, man, Jimbo Fisher, this guy, I mean, what a payday. I mean, this is incredible. And Mississippi State, if I'm Mississippi State, who do I go after as a head coach? Mitch Davis put a list of possible replacements yesterday. And he put on there, here's the list that Mitch Davis had yesterday. I'm going to run these by you. Okay. Jamie Chadwell, he's at Coastal. Well, it was at Coastal Carolina. And Mike Elko is at Duke. Now, he was at A&M as defensive coordinator. He's in his second year. Lance Leipold, who's at Kansas. Kurt Signetti. Jeff Lebby. I like that one. Jeff Lebby was the brains, along with Lane Kiffin. They were really good a couple of years ago at Ole Miss. Went to the Sugar Bowl. Jeff Lebby is offensive coordinator at Oklahoma now. That's who I go get. If I'm Mississippi State, I want Jeff Lebby. Gus Malzahn. Next, Bobby Petrino, a family man. The guy can flat out coach. It's interesting. He's not being mentioned. Maybe he is by Texas A&M. And Urban Meyer. He's going to be on everybody's short list. Okay. That's just how this stuff goes. But I think this one is going to be a lot of fun to watch. These coaching searches, they're underway right now. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back with more on Sidelines Tuesday morning editions.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Coach Matt Dean will be joining us here in just a minute. He's in the traffic over in Memphis, trying to get to a safe location. Look, Mississippi State, go get Jeff Lebby. I think that guy's one of the brightest offensive minds in college football. He's brilliant. He's worked with Lane Kiffin, knows how to call plays. Okay? Mike Elko, A&M's going to go after him because he spent a couple of years there as defensive coordinator. But right now at Texas A&M, you've got two guys that are coordinators. DJ Durkin was at Maryland, Ole Miss, now A&M. And then you've got Bobby Petrino. He's been a head coach. Surprised again. Wouldn't that be wild if Bobby Petrino becomes the coach at Texas A&M. Watch that one, okay? And then Lance Leipold at Kansas. He is a guy, if you can win at Kansas, you can win anywhere. It's a beautiful state, okay? But it's a state that, there's not a lot of people out there. There's not a lot of talent. But he takes everything that he gets, and he's able to win. I wouldn't, I like him. I really, really like him as a coach. Lance Leipold is he's won everywhere he's been. Okay. He's a guy that you got to look at him and say, who can give us instant success? Again, Zach Arnett. I like his enthusiasm and all like that. He's 31, 32 years old. But he should never have switched that offense when you got a quarterback on the roster. Right there, Will Rogers from Rankin, Mississippi, who'd set all kind of records in the SEC. That was coaching malpractice. And in the world we live in today, that'll cost you your job. It'll cost you your job in a flash, okay? And as Frank Broyles told my friend Tim Horton and his father, Coach Harold Horton, years ago, if you've made the wrong hire and you know it's the wrong hire, you got to get rid of them right away. Don't let it continue, because you can dig yourself in a hole the longer you stay with that bad hire, deeper and deeper, that you may not be able to get out of, okay? A lot of comments coming in this morning, active morning. Hey, follow us on all social media. We're everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. If you hear us live, great. Love having you on here. We're all over the place. Android, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple. We're live on YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat. You name it. All social media, we are here. We got the coach, Matt Dean, one of my favorite Iowans, my favorite Americans, and my favorite coaches, a gourmet chef, and the face of Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. Coach, man, I've been talking about this coaching upheaval. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy out there at A&M. $76 million. Hey, kick me in the ass. I'll take half that. Walk around, Coach, what is going on? Okay. All right. You can't. I'm not muted. Can you hear me now? Yeah. All right. Okay. I don't know. Matt, you might want to check your mute button. You possibly could be. I don't know. I mean, we're going out. Yeah, go out and come back in, and I think that'll work. But yeah. I
got you now.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy, can you hear me?
Somehow my speaker on the computer got muted, Rob. It's never happened before. I apologize.
Wait, we never have technical problems in the world we live in today. I just always refer to my 95-year-old dad. How many gigabytes of DRAM do we have in that computer? Boy, speak English to me.
Jeez, what am I doing?
I love it. Hey, let's talk about these coaching changes.
Yeah.
And all right, A&M, we've been saying it all fall.
Yeah.
And on Saturday's show, we called it the Fire Bowl. Which coach would be fired first? But Raymond from Huntsville yesterday texted in a great question. Has there ever been a college football game where both coaches were fired after the game? I think we made history here, Matt.
I think so too. I do. Maybe you were more aware of it than I was, Rob. Why does Arnett not get a second year chance? Is it just because the circumstances of how he was promoted and people just want to see if he can handle it, or what are your thoughts on Arnett? I don't think it's ever happened, by the way, to my knowledge, but both coaches play each other. Next Monday, they're fired.
Yeah, I've never seen it happen. And you know what? It happened because in both cases, things were so bad to continue down that same path would, again, you just be enabling the destruction of your football program.
Yeah.
And I mean, Zach Arnett was the defensive coordinator. 3 years he was with Mike Leach in the air raid. Logically, if we use logic here, he would have said, look, we're going to keep running this offense. I've got a stud quarterback, Will Rogers, already on the roster. This is what we're built for. I'm gonna run the defense and be the head coach. And then if we have to make a change, we'll do it. But we got Will Rogers. And he didn't do it. And it killed the team. Just like what happened at Arkansas with Dan Enos. Arkansas's offense this year looked like some car riding around the interstate in Memphis with 4 bald tires and no insurance.
Yeah.
Suspended license. I mean, it was awful. And so was Mississippi State. They were worse.
And they had most of their personnel back, right? I mean, that's what was crazy. I think that's probably, you're right, Rob. If they just leave Rodgers alone and let him figure it out and get someone in there to run the same system, Rodgers could have ran it for him basically because he loved playing for Leach, it seemed like. And, now you're in a situation where, you look at A&M, they have all those resources, but, who's going there? They're not going to get the rock star hire. They're not going to get the top incomers. They're going to get a good football coach. But I will tell you this, because I've met the man, Elijah Robinson, Coach Robinson.
Yeah,
man, they promoted. I'd name him head coach right now. You know why? All the players absolutely love him.
Defensive line coach.
Yes. Yesterday at his press conference, first time he's been in front of the mic in that capacity, I thought he was great. Someone asked him, hey, you have a little bit of a quarterback controversy because Jalen Henderson, the transfer from Fresno State, played instead of Max Johnson. I don't know if Max was dinged up or not, but he said, hey, listen, he goes, how are you going to handle it? He goes, I got Coach Petrino here. He's going to take care of all the offense, and whatever he says best with his experience, that's what we're going to do. I thought it was one of the best answers and honest answers I've ever seen. You know what they need? Yeah. If they're smart, which no one really is, they would just say, Petrino, you run the offense, and Coach E, you're our new head coach. I know the man, Rob. Guys will run through a wall for that guy. My son worked for him for 4 years. Yeah. And I'm just telling you, they're probably going to go after a flashy name, but they got someone right now in their interim that I think would do a terrific job.
Most coaches, when they're hired, they might become rock stars, but most of them are, just footnotes in history. I mean, think about it. Yeah. And maybe 20% of the coaches make it. Right. It's a lot higher than the restaurant business success. But you think about Elijah Robinson. If he has the type of charisma and genuine love for that school that someone say like Carnell Williams, him as Cadillac. Yeah. I mean, Audrey and I were talking to Cadillac after the Auburn-Georgia game for about 10 minutes outside the stadium. It was just there, He could recruit you to go to your own execution, and you'd be excited. He's That's that right. good. But he genuinely loves his school. And it comes through when he deals with people. Elijah Robinson, where did he play his college football?
Okay. Played for Joe Paterno. A lot of people don't know that. Played for Joe Pa.
Wow.
And then he ended up, he was going to go, I heard the story yesterday, but I knew this from Tyler. He had a devastating knee injury. He was on track to be a pro player. So at the end of his career, he had a buddy that got drafted by the 49ers and wanted him to come out and start his own marketing company for him, kind of like an agent back then, whatever, right? And basically, they offered him a GA spot at Penn State. I'll tell you who swears by the guy who talked about him in the press conference yesterday is Nebraska head coach Matt Rule, because he worked for Matt Rule at Temple. And when Matt Rule got the Baylor job, he followed him to Baylor. And then as Matt Rule explained yesterday, then I couldn't afford to keep him. He basically said there's no way this guy will be, if they don't give it to him and he leaves there, that he would be hired immediately. He's that good a position coach, right? And he wanted to make him his defensive coordinator at Nebraska, I think, but he didn't want to leave A&M. And as he had a great line yesterday, and I think this line has been used before, but he did it so well. They were asking him about his retention plan, keeping guys out of the portal, whatever. He just stared at the camera. He said, hey, when you make an Aggie decision, this is a life decision. This is not a 4-year decision. This is a 40-year decision. Aggies take care of Aggies. I thought it was one of the best things I've ever heard from a coach about keeping people, because there is something to that. Texas A&M, they take care of their own. They have a huge endowment. They have the 12th Man Foundation. So honestly, they're probably not going to go that route, but if they were smart, they would consider it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we're now into our first evolution 5 years ago, October 15th of 2018, when the transfer portal became the law of the land. And the free market, I don't care what people want to happen. Most people are emotional and make stupid decisions. Okay? That's just how human nature is. But I'll say this. More than half these kids that are going into the portal are not getting picked up. They're orphaned. It's the orphan brigade. Okay?
Yeah.
I will say this. These kids aren't as dumb as you think they are. And people aren't as dumb as you. They're not. And it's not like they don't think about this stuff. They're starting to see what happens when you go apply for a job and they go, Matt, let me see here. You signed with Oregon. Then you transferred to New Mexico State. Then you went to Kansas State. And now you're at Georgia Southern. If I give you a job, I say this every day, but it's true. Are you going to just walk out on me 3 months in? And they're also realizing, we know about the Aggie ring ceremony, ring knockers. You go to VMI, you go to the Citadel, a service academy. Man, you talk about a network. I can just tell you among people I know that I graduated with from Auburn. Right. I mean, it's strong, man. I mean, these people, if you're an Auburn man or Auburn woman, I'm going to listen to you. Because I know what you've been through. Rhodes College, are you kidding me? I mean, that school, you survive, graduate from there. You're not just in Memphis, but people know that name. And that's why this stuff's going to settle down.
I think you're right. And I think the people that manage it the best, I think the people that have those kind of conversations with families like, hey, listen, you can go where you want. But if you're leaving here, the average NFL lifespan is 4 years, they say, of a career? If you're
maybe, yeah.
Good luck, because we got you covered till you hit Social Security. So
yeah,
we got something we can do for you after the fact when football's over that not a lot of other people can. And I think that was kind of conveyed yesterday in the message. So getting back to that, honestly, it had gotten stale in College Station. And I think the precursor, Rob, I think we all knew when they forced him to hire Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator, the writing was on the wall. The writing was on the wall.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think we saw them arguing or anything like that with play calls during the year. It was just, look, if a dog will bite, he will do it when he's a pup. If Jimbo didn't get it done in the first year or two with all that he had, I'm sorry. I don't go. It takes time. Well, people don't give you time like that. You got to produce something. But what you also got to do is produce it consistently.
Well, Rob, here's the thing, though. Let's not forget. Year 3, they won the Orange Bowl and finished AP fourth in the country. They were left out of the football playoffs. My question is, how do you have that momentum in year 3, and then 2 years later you go 5-7? That's my problem. His start was fine, Rob. Heck, his very first or second game almost knocked off Dabo at College Station. It was 28-26. Year 3, they win the Orange Bowl. They're one of the top 5 teams in the country. Yep. Why did that not carry on, Rob? Why? I think the answer is in that building, and people know. But at the end of the day, you got to bring it every day, and that's what these younger coaches do. That's what Kirby Smart does. As soon as Saban or Smart win a national championship, they're already 24 hours later worried about the next one.
Yes.
You know? So
yeah.
that's
Life is a lot like tennis. You know, you get aced, you better move over to the next side. Okay.
Right.
Because it's coming. Okay. And you cannot celebrate too long being successful. In the bond business, you make a trade, get right back on the phone and do it again. It's like, you know, it's supposed to be like deep sea fishing. I've been deep sea fishing a lot. Anyone who ever has knows what I'm talking about. When you go out there on that boat and you get into the grouper or the snapper or the mackerel or whatever, as soon as you pull that line up, you know what that deckhand does? He doesn't say, go in there and take a nap, come on out later. That's not what you do. He's already got you another line with a hook and bait on it, and you're right back in that water. Because when it's good, you get after their ass. And I think the problem at A&M is, and there's too much money, too much opulence. It's too comfortable. You know, if you've got a family business and you don't make your kids work and you think that, they'll figure it out. Just remember the words of my great friend, Barry Blackburn, my estate planning attorney for 20 years I worked with, went to Auburn with me. He passed away in March of 14. He used to say the first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys unless you make the kids work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, hard. Jacques Doucet is on with us now, WAFB Channel 9 down in Baton Rouge. But the whole thing about family wealth, make your kids, if you own a big business, make them go in there and scrub toilets and sweep floors and work the weekend, the graveyard shift, all that. It matters. It's the same thing in a football culture. If it's too easy, and Bobby Bowden told Terry Bowden this at Auburn, and it didn't work because he was 21-1 his first 2 years. You know, don't let it come too early because you got to appreciate the hard work. And Jacques, what's going on down at LSU. I mean, I've got tons of LSU questions already on here because I knew you were coming on about LSU, but you can go from winning a national championship 2019 to 2020, and it's like that. No one could remember. It's a people have short memories, don't they?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the flip side of winning and winning big is that you get spoiled and you start turning your nose up at, I don't want to go to the ReliaQuest Bowl or, a 10-win season. What does that mean? When I was growing up, it was like, well, if you got one of those big wins and beat a top 5 team and made it to a bowl game and won 8-9, something like that, that was a good season. You didn't even talk about or think about national championships. And now, you won 2 in 5 years in 2003, 2007, and then you waited a long time, I guess, to 2019. I guess the biggest problem is comparison is the thief of joy, to quote Theodore Roosevelt on your show there this morning. But when Nick Saban goes to Alabama and does what he does, it's like, I don't know. It's like you got the Beatles over here and you're pretty good. You're selling millions, but you got the Beatles over here, so that's what it's been for LSU for a long time.
That's what Frank Duffy calls those LSU's 6 national championships that Nick Saban has won at Alabama. I mean, you think about it. Coach Matt Dean's on with us right now, and his son's on the staff with Dan Lanning out at Oregon. And he was with Jimbo for 4 years at A&M. And, we're just talking about how did it go wrong at A&M? Same thing. How did it go wrong with Coach O? Because, he is from Bayou Lafourche or whatever down, he is as Cajun and as authentic as it gets. But it can happen. And Matt, as a coach, you can bring back everybody from a team that won every game the year before. But if they slip in the offseason and don't work as hard and dissension sets in and things happen, you can be lucky to be 500, can't you?
Well, we talk about this a lot, but other people are working hard too. Other people are trying to get better. Other people are recruiting at a high level too. So you go back to that LSU team that was assembled. I mean, you look at what they're doing in the NFL now. It's incredible. I watch Burrow and Chase play almost every week on my YouTube football package. I mean, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are the best 1-2 in football. You can make an argument in wide receiver and quarterback. It's just very difficult to maintain it in football because in basketball, you play with 5, you play 8 or 9 people at a game usually. In football, if the line of scrimmage is not right, you can have all the skill you want, but if you can't protect your quarterback, it's difficult to win in the SEC. And that's why last weekend, everyone talked about the Ole Miss Georgia game. I think Georgia proved they have a pretty doggone good line of scrimmage still. I mean, it's amazing what they did. They boat raced Ole Miss 52-17, and Ole Miss was top 10 in the country and 9-1, I think 8-1 coming to the game. So it's hard to replicate, guys, and that's why what Georgia's doing, trying to get a third, it's mind-boggling what they got going on. But that's stacking classes, retaining classes.
Yeah.
It's funny because most people are so consumed with the quarterback position. But, Stetson Bennett graduates. It wasn't like he was a 5-star, 2 national championships. And all of a sudden now Carson Beck seems to be that guy, because he's got protection, because they can run the football, because he's got one of the greatest tight ends known to mankind. I mean, it's a pretty cool formula.
It is. Jacques, you look at LSU. I mean, that game Saturday night, the offensive numbers that LSU put up 702 yards. Compare 2019's offense to this year's offense.
Well, real quick, I don't want to get caught up in the moment and get caught up in hyperbole, but I think a lot of people were saying that's the greatest performance they've ever seen from an LSU quarterback. Yeah. I mean, you had a guy accumulate over 600 yards of offense, 234 rushing, 372 passing. There's never been a quarterback in the history of LSU that can take it up the sidelines 85 yards for a touchdown. Jaden Daniels does things that are hard to explain. He's almost like a race boat in everyone else's canoes. I mean, he just blows past people. He doesn't look like he's even trying that hard. He just glides down the field, looks over his shoulder at everyone behind him. And his progression as a passer has been amazing. Last year he averaged 208 yards a game passing. This year he's at 316. Last year, I think he threw 17 touchdowns in 14 games. This year he's at 30 in 10 games. And his rushing numbers are even more than they were last year. He took off and ran a lot last year. Now he's averaging, I think, 91 yards per game rushing. So it was an incredible thing. Football's a team game, but it was like, holy cow, this guy is just incredible. And, to your point, they've got a quarterback, Jaden Daniels, Burrow, obviously. The 2 wide receivers were Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You threw in Terrence Marshall in there as well. And now you got Malik Neighbors, who's a candidate certainly for the Blitnikoff. I don't know if Marvin Harrison Jr. just got the name and plays in his team is having a better year. And then, Brian Thomas Jr. And Justin Jefferson perhaps are comparable in terms of their numbers and everything they're doing. So the issue is that your defense is so inept. Even if the defense was a C+ defense, you'd be in contention for a playoff. But every big game this year, your defense has cost you the game. Florida State, Ole Miss, Alabama, those 3 losses, you just could not get off the field. Too much pressure on the offense to score every time you get the ball, and LSU is where they are. So, but I do think a lot of people are saying that Jaden is the best player in the country. And there's been certainly guys like Tim Tebow, Robert Griffin III, and others who have had multiple lost seasons and won the Heisman Trophy. So I don't know if Jaden can win it or not. I certainly think the conversation has gone from can he be a finalist to can he win it? And certainly LSU and their PR campaign and the media and all their social media campaigns, I got the full court press on to try to, get him that trophy.
Matt, him compared to Joe Burrow. What are the differences, the pluses, the minuses, whatever?
Well, listen, I don't want to – Burrow was uncannily mobile and still is. He had that calf injury in camp, so it slowed him down. If you look at Cincinnati the last 4 games until C.J. Stroud came along this weekend, which is another story, if you compare C.J. Stroud to Bryce Young. But the thing about Jaden is you look at this weekend, Jacques touched upon it. I mean, who does that? 600 yards total offense and a quarterback passing and running. You talk about Lamar Jackson. That's that's greater than Lamar's ever done, right? So I think my mind is really swayed that I think Jayden at the next level is going to be really a problem for defenses, and he's going to be a great starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I think this year, I think his decision to come to LSU, and I mean, it's amazing these transfer quarterbacks they've got in the last 5 years, how well it has played out for them. Because I think if you can do it in the SEC and you have tape, then scouts know you're going to do it in the NFL.
Do you see the numbers just put up there?
It's crazy.
Number one in the SEC, 3,164 yards rushing. He's the number 3 rusher in the SEC with 918 yards. The greatest quarterback seasons I've ever seen have been Cam Newton, Joe Burrow, and this one is, I mean, it's unbelievable. And I hate to say, there's a comment came in here from somebody. There's so many comments coming in here, I can't even find it. But here it is. Larry, listening on the web, I guess, or watching. Thank you. In Natchez, one of the great Catholic river cities in America of all time, home of the Ite family, Margaret and Michael, and all of them. A bunch of them live in Memphis. It's a shame that LSU wasted the second best offense in school history. I hadn't wasted it, but the next question is about Matt House, Jacques.
Mm-hmm.
He came from the NFL as a linebacker coach. He wasn't a coordinator, was he, before? Was this his first time as a coordinator? Talk about
No, he was
that
at Kentucky,
jump.
right? He was a coordinator at Kentucky and did pretty well. And real quick I mean, look, Burrow threw 60 touchdowns, 6-0. He won the Heisman. Now he's going to play in 2 more games than Jayden. He had a playoff game and an SEC championship. And a national championship, and then Jayden may opt out of the bowl. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So Jayden may only play in 12 games to 15. We'll see what happens when you compare stats. But I mean, Matt House last year, I thought he did a pretty good job. Now down the stretch, you look at that A&M game, the regular season finale, they really pushed LSU around and beat LSU. And then in the SEC championship game, Georgia put up 50 against LSU. And then in the bowl game, Purdue was, they had scrubs playing because everyone opted out. So, but yeah, I mean, I think in today's time with social media and fans, I think the court of public opinion is going to put a lot of pressure on LSU to make some changes on their defensive staff. I thought last year when LSU beat Alabama, their defense was a big reason why. But, talent, I just don't feel like they've got the talent. They've got some guys who've not lived up to expectations. And the guys they've taken out of the transfer portal, they tried to, rehabilitate them, so to speak. Guys like Denver Harris, and Denver Harris is just a knucklehead. He is what he is at this point, inactive, they call it. So that, and there's some questions on the recruiting trail as well right now. I think there was another big 4-star that decommitted from LSU yesterday. So, is Brian Kelly much more intelligent, organized than Les Miles and Ed Ogeron? Yeah. Is he going to have the same players as Ed Ogeron and Les Miles? I should have said. We'll see. I mean, that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, Matt.
No, I mean, honestly, you go back to week 1. I mean, not making excuses, but I thought, if you look at Florida State, their best game of the year probably happened against LSU. I mean, I know they're still undefeated. I know they beat Clemson. I know that they just beat Miami. But if I'm going to be honest, I think LSU has also suffered a little bit this year. I mean, in the scheduling world, you go at Alabama, your neutral site with Florida State, you're at Ole Miss. All winnable games, and it was, I think if you could have one back, if you could have the Ole Miss game back, because Jacques, I watched the Missouri game, and I was shocked at that time how good I thought Missouri was, but that comeback win for the Tigers, I was like, okay, we got something here. They had that pick 6 late. I'm like, hey, they're making some progress in the second half. I thought that would carry through defensively. I know you say, well, they still gave up 39, but yeah. That was deceiving because most of those points were scored in the first half. I thought the fourth quarter LSU's defense really showed up against Missouri, and Missouri's turned out to be a really good team. I mean, you look at what they did, how competitive they were at Georgia, how they just decimated Tennessee last week. So I think, in anything, the recruiting cycle is important. So I think Jacques right. Let's see if Bryan can get the players. And I don't know. I just think LSU is always going to have superior talent. And I was just shocked. Like, my question to Jacques is, like, last year when I saw Harold Perkins Jr. in his role, I thought it would just be taking off like Defensive Player of the Year this year. And it hadn't happened. I don't know if it's because of the position he's playing or whatever, but I was surprised.
Yeah, that's been a disappointment. There's no doubt. I think that I kind of made the comparison that last year Harold Perkins was like a basketball player that came in and made threes. That's what he did. Made threes, and the crowd pumped up the crowd and everything. And now this year they're like, okay, we need you to play defense. We need you to distribute the ball. Like, they wanted him to be a more complete guy.
Right.
And I don't know if that fits him. And I don't know if that's, in today's world, or, his people around him, or they saying we want him to do this and do that because at the next level we want him to do this and that. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, you would have thought after the numbers he put up last year and how he single-handedly won a few games for them, in particular the Arkansas game, which the LSU offense just stumbled around in the cold for 4 quarters, and he sacked the quarterback, I think, 4 times that game. That's been a big disappointment this year. So, and LSU, I mean, even in the Les Miles era towards the end where he was so stubborn with the offense, I mean, LSU's been a defensive school, right? Chinese bandits, punch you in the mouth, hard-nosed defense. And it's been really tough for LSU fans to watch.
Yeah. Let me throw this one at you. This is an interesting one. Just some stats I'm going to throw up here. We talked about the stats of Jaden Daniels. Kentucky running back Ray Davis, who transferred from Vanderbilt, in his 3 games against Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, rushed for a total of 109 yards. He had 12 carries for 28 against Alabama. Guys, if a guy doesn't show up against the best teams, then, I'm folding the page, or he goes way down, in my opinion, as a high pick. And you look at that's how I look at things. I look at how you play against the very best competition. Then on the flip side, look at, Jaden Daniels, his numbers, against Florida. I mean, they've got talent against Alabama, and, LSU against Florida State. But when you don't have a defense to back you up, it doesn't matter. But right now, there's no single player. If LSU's undefeated, it's not even in discussion about him and the Heisman, is it, Jacques? I mean, I don't see how it is.
No, I mean, you're saying if LSU's undefeated, I mean, there's no question. Yeah.
It's not even
and with Burrow, I mean, I had a conversation with Tommy Moffitt, who was a strength and conditioning coach at LSU for 2 decades. He was on that staff in 19. He feels like if LSU would have lost a couple of games, Burrow still would have, won the Heisman Trophy and all that. He was the best player. So, Jaden a year ago just wouldn't throw the ball down the field. He was, always standing back there, patting the ball. Well, this year he's letting it rip, and he's shown that he's a beautiful passer. I mean, he is throwing balls down the field and putting them right in the hands of guys. And, at this point, I don't want to get caught up in the moment, but I think a lot of people are saying second best quarterback in LSU history in terms of what he's doing and everything. But, yeah, if he had a C+, C- defense, LSU's in the SEC championship game, and they're playing for, a playoff berth. But, I like Matt House, and I think he's shown he can be a good coach. But it's just like I said, I think there was one. I think in LSU's 3 losses, the opposing team had 32 possessions, and they punted 5 times. Something I saw the other day. So, in the third down percentage, I think in those losses, like 65% for the opposition. So, and if your team is not constructed, like when the LSU went to Alabama and people said, well, the turning point in the game was when Jaden Daniels' pass was deflected and intercepted. Okay. You can't go to Tuscaloosa and turn the ball over 4 times, but can you turn it over once? I mean, you should be able to absorb 1 turnover on the road, but you can't when, Alabama's playing street ball, basically putting the guy back in the shotgun and on third down. Okay, I'm going to run. I mean, it's just what they did all night long. So
yeah, it's kind of like what Jalen Hurts would do. He would just get back in there and just run for his life. And, I think when Jalen Hurts was a freshman in 2016 at Alabama, he only threw, standing in the pocket about 27% of the time. 73% of the time he was rolling out. And look, Joe Burrow, that season, 5,700 yards passing, 60-something touchdowns. And you remember 78.6% completion percentage. In 2018, he was 54.8%. Unbelievable, the quantum leap that he made. Matt, where is Bo Nix's percentage right now passing? He was up around 80% at one point this year.
I think he's 78-ish.
Wow.
I know he has 29 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He has a bunch of rushing touchdowns. The one thing that's interesting about Bo this year, and I follow them a lot because my son's on the staff, he ran a lot more last year and he got hurt late in the season. It looked like there's been a concerted effort to say, hey, Bo, let our running backs take care of this on the RPOs. And he is not – now he's got several rushing touchdowns, but he's not been the same force rushing the football. But they have a great opportunity if they can continue to win because they still have Oregon State on their schedule in 2 weeks. Could set up a repeat of the Washington game. And honestly, this weekend – is nerve-wracking for them because Arizona State, their former coach, Kenny Dillingham's there. He's won 2 out of 3. They just beat UCLA on the road. So this time of year, November is really hard football, guys. There are no secrets. Everybody's banged up. Everybody's got plenty of tape. Everybody's – if like for Arizona State, it's their Super Bowl this weekend to play Oregon at home. And Kenny would love to beat his former employer. I mean, that's just the way college football is. That's like, Rob, I got to tell you, the Iron Bowl. A few weeks ago, I said, Alabama's going to blow them out. I'm going to tell you what now. That game's an interesting game now, the way Auburn is getting better and progressing. That would just think what's the intensity of that game if it's close in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Jacques, our friend Matt Doug Dean, had a friend of his draw up an artist rendering. Touchdown Jesus at Jordan-Hare Stadium. You got to see this. It's classic. I mean, it's going to be a wild atmosphere. Yeah. I've got to find a way to sneak away from Thanksgiving with the in-laws up in Clarksville. I don't care if I have to ride the Greyhound bus. I'll get a case of hams and a bucket of chicken and just have fun, make a lot of friends, and just hear some hard luck stories. I will find a way to get to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Jacques, looking at LSU recruiting-wise, there's a question on here. Somebody had asked about, I can't even find it, but is LSU getting the right, here it is. It's Kelly in Mobile. LSU ranks high in recruiting. Are they getting the right fits as players? We all know player development is more important than anything versus star rankings.
Well, I think that their secondary coach is taking a lot of heat right now. A guy named Robert Steeples, who had been a high school coach in the past. I mean, on one hand, that's a great story. On the other hand, it's like, this is LSU. This is supposed to be DBU. Do we have a guy that's developing talent or not? There's been there's always been kind of some rumblings about go to Florida and bring Corey Raymond back. I don't know if that will ever happen or not. I mean, from what I understand, Coach Kelly never even talked to Corey Raymond when the transition was made, and Corey Raymond was on Ed Ogeron's staff. And, so I don't know if that could be mended or not. But, I think that there's also talk of it. And I hate to even sound this way, but, there's a big stress on academics and being, a model citizen and all this stuff. And that's what you're supposed to be, right? But then you got some people, they're like, hey, man, this is the SEC. We need some dogs. Who cares if he's got a 3.5 GPA and he graduates and all that? And so you do kind of hear that, hey, this is LSU. Don't try to make this place Notre Dame. And so there's that kind of talk out there as well. I've talked to a lot of parents who really appreciate Brian Kelly's graduate champions mantra and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, if LSU loses a game and you're sitting in traffic on Nicholson Drive, you're not going to say, well, you know what, but the team GPA is higher than it's ever been before. No one's ever going to say that. Right. So, Yeah, I think this is very crucial, the recruiting class and the transfer portal and all that to LSU's roster next year, because they've lost every single season opener they've played since the 19 season. They're playing these kind of Daytona 500 big game, out of the box, and they got one next year against USC in Vegas. You damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Then if you start playing UTEP season opener, all these games are boring. I want to see us play a big team, And so now they're saying, well, we can't stand starting 0-1 every year. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Real quick, look, Bo Nix, great story. I just want to say, 2019, he was the SEC Freshman of the Year. LSU fans were ticked off that Derek Stingley didn't win it that year. Derek Stingley's been in the league for 2 years. Bo Nix still playing college football. He got roasted and tarred by everybody. He looked like Ivan Drago, they said, with his blonde flat top and all that. The way that he has come through and played up there, man, I know he's a religious guy and you're taught to be humble, but I'd be real tempted if I was him to just say, hey, man, look, all you guys doubted me. Look what I'm doing here at Oregon. So good for him.
Yeah, and his family's just first class. I mean, his father, Patrick, is the head football coach now over at Phoenix City Central, 32 minutes away from Auburn's campus. And I think at last count, there's like 30 Division I prospects on that roster from 9 through 12, including the number one player in the state, Cam Coleman, the wide receiver, currently committed to Texas A&M. If I'm betting a steamer pack of crystals and a bottle of Woodford Reserve with you, Jacques or Matt, he ends up being an Auburn Tiger. But Matt, go ahead.
No, it's an interesting story, Jack. I've had a chance, my son just speak, Bo's numbers have been fantastic, but it's almost been like a rebirth, because if you looked at him his last year when he got banged up, I remember them playing an A&M game on the road where he got hurt and there was a defensive touchdown on a quarterback scoop and score. And he's been such a leader to those kids in the locker room. And honestly, he made a great decision by coming back for a fifth year because it's really improved his draft stock, I think. And also, he's up there in the top 3 or 4 for the Heisman race as well, and a lot's going to depend on these next 3 weeks, who plays out and wins and those type of things. But, looking at what Auburn's doing, to me, if I'm an Auburn fan, which I know you are, Rob, it's got to be really exciting to see the progress with the group they had and knowing how Coach Freeze and his staff is going to recruit. I mean, I think that's really kind of neat story.
It's like Doug Dean said that this Auburn football team put together with epoxy glue, string, and duct tape, the favorite wedding gift in the South, a roll of duct tape, I might add. But it's been fun to watch. And, a ragtag group. And, Jacques, like what Matt's saying, Auburn fans are the self-loathing, no talent. They're still number 16 on that blue chip index. And y'all both know what the BCI is. It's the 4-year measure of number of 4 and 5 stars you have on the roster. And if you're over 50%, you are technically a threat to win the national championship. Auburn's about 53% on that roster with 4 and 5 stars. And this recruiting class, they'll probably sign 3 or 4 5 stars when it's all said and done. But Jacques, covering LSU day in and day out, how quickly things can change. And LSU is a damn good school. Guys I know that went to LSU, it's very smart. The Pennington School of Chemical Engineering, it's good. Brian Kelly, though, this ain't Notre Dame. They want to win at LSU in every game. What are you seeing out of him as year 2's wrapping up? And I hope Jaden Daniels plays in the bowl game. He ought to give Bryce Young and Will Anderson a call, what they did at Alabama last year, and ended up being the number 1 pick for Bryce and number 3 for Will Anderson. I hope he plays in the bowl game because that guy is what they say, must-watch TV. And I don't know, you've had the chance to interview him. What's he like talking to him one-on-one?
Jaden Daniels?
Yeah.
Lots of smiles, upbeat. People gravitate to him. It's an interesting story. I think when he started high school football, when he went to go get his physical, the doctor says you're too light, you're too skinny. He didn't pass his first physical. Wow. He was so skinny, and so he's put on weight as it's gone. They've got him listed at 210. Yeah, I'm just for you to come in from Arizona State where you played 3 years and you don't know anybody on the LSU team, and at the quarterback spot, the most important position, to win everybody over, that's a pretty big accomplishment from his perspective. So I do know that one of his lifelong dreams is to be a Heisman Trophy finalist and winner. So there was never any doubt in my mind about him playing the entire regular season at least. And then if they go to a bowl game, maybe it's a case of it's almost like setting up a boxing match or something. If they get paired up with USC, hey, can we get Caleb Williams to play? Because if we do, then we'll get Jaden Daniels to play, and we'll have these two guys, going head to head. Or Notre Dame, hey, Brian Kelly's old school. Hey, don't you want to beat those guys? So it might be one of those things. If it's a mundane bowl game against an unranked team or something like that, an Iowa or something, then okay, I'm out of here. But maybe if the bowl game, if the matchup is enticing enough, he'll play one last time.
Yeah. Jacques, I know you got a big day ahead of you. And Matt, hang on if you can. I know, Jacques, you got to get going to a press conference. I think is today press conference day in Baton Rouge?
Well, we got a women's basketball game at 11 in the morning with Kim Mulkey and them. They call it like the school day where they bring all these kids from the local schools, and they used to need that to pack it out. These days they don't need that to pack women's basketball with Mulkey and what she's building or has already built here. So we got that.
That's already been. Man, what a job you have. Tell people how they can follow you. And as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share with us, because we absolutely love it. There are so many questions coming in on the text line and a couple of other things. It's hard to get them in, but you answered most of them. But I like Walter in Jackson, Mississippi. JD makes a lot of sense. That being Jacques Doucet, Coach Dale Browne, why the S?
Yeah. He said, when I first started working here, Dale Browne, one of my childhood heroes. I used to go watch Chris Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal and Ricky Blanton and all those guys. And so young man, why the S at the end of your name? Why? That's just the way, that's the way it goes. So
he's from North Dakota,
at Jacques Doucet on Twitter. WAFB is our television station. You can find us there. It's good talking to you, Matt, and
you too, Jacques.
To you, Rob. Go Ducks. There's a duck flew into Tiger Stadium. I don't know if you saw that before the game the other night. He was swooping around. He landed on the field, and a fan caught him in his hands. They had like a duck up in the stands before the Florida game the other night. And they
I love it.
That's got to be a good sign.
Absolutely. I love it, man. Mate, take care. We'll talk to you next week. We'll take a quick break. Be right back with Jordan Hill, Matt Dean, top of hour number 2.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you, man. That flash, man. Jordan Hill's with us, 24/7 Sports over in Athens, covering the Georgia Bulldogs. And the doubters out there, I thought if Ole Miss played the perfect game, had no turnovers, and Georgia slipped a little bit, Ole Miss have a great chance to win the game. But it would be about Georgia kind of collapsing, and that just doesn't happen. That's how unlikely it was. But I didn't think it'd be like a 52-17 or 52-14 to 17 beat down. Yeah, I was right. So what were your takeaways from that? I think maybe the Georgia football players have been listening to all the doubters out there, the CFP and everything, and they've been listening to their head coach saying, every week you got to go out there and prove yourself. Every week. What you did last week doesn't matter. If you want to be elite, you got to play that way every Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing, Rob, is that, I really do kind of think this team is peaking at the right time. And I wrote about it
Yeah.
this morning looking at the run game. They had played pretty well early in the year, but they were just short on guys. I mean, Dejon Edwards missed the start of the year. Kendall Milton gets banged up. Roderick Robinson gets banged up. Then they, seem to finally be getting healthy. And Kendall Milton probably had the best game of his career at Georgia on Saturday night against Ole Miss. They averaged a little bit over 8 yards a carry. I mean, think about that. That's just insane. Playing really well, like you said. I thought there was a chance that Ole Miss could win this game. I picked Georgia by 8. I said 28-20 because I did think that Ole Miss is really talented. Didn't think that their defense would be able to get enough stops. And, it was back and forth, and you were kind of waiting for the first team to blink. And it seemed like once Jackson Dart threw that interception that Javon Bullard brought down, that was what got the situation snowballing in Georgia's favor. And you turn around and Georgia scores 31 unanswered. So a very big win, being able to finish things off at home, go undefeated at home once again. And, they had locked up the East earlier that day before they even took the field when Missouri won. And they showed up and took care of business against the Rebels.
Yeah. Matt?
No, I'm Jordan. I'm living in Memphis, but I have a son that's on Dan Lanning's staff at Oregon, so I have a lot of respect for the history of Georgia, the recent history included, and just what I thought was reaffirmed on Saturday, the line of scrimmage. I mean, they're just, if you do the eye test, I had the chance. I watched the Michigan game. The two teams right now with the best line of scrimmages in the country, in my opinion, are probably Georgia and Michigan. But I just, my gut says that something's going to go wrong for Michigan. They got so much turmoil going on with the program right now. I'm not sure they're going to get there. But right now, the game that I'm kind of looking forward to is probably 3 weeks away is Georgia, Alabama. I mean, that's going to be an interesting test for both teams. But I don't know how you can bet against Georgia right now because they have just shown me the ability to play complementary football. And even when it's crazy, Ole Miss comes down to that first drive, doesn't face them at all. They just match every drive. And next thing you wake up, you look up, it's 28-14, and we're still late first, early second quarter. So it was just a really it didn't surprise me a bit. And honestly, I think Carson Beck keeps getting better every day. But when it just goes to show you, when you're protected and you have skill and you have a really good defense, it takes a little bit of pressure off the quarterback.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, that Alabama game, I think, is essentially going to be a play-in game to the playoff. Yeah. And I think Alabama will have a chance against Georgia. I do think at this point I would pick Georgia, but yeah I mean, it's going to be super competitive. Obviously, Georgia's going to take care of business. I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Now Tennessee's season is going to be, well, let's try to play spoiler and ruin it for Georgia. And then Georgia Tech too. Georgia Tech, I think they're a favorite against Syracuse on Saturday, but if they lose, they would need to beat Georgia to go to a bowl game, which obviously is a lot easier said than done. So I don't expect Georgia to be caught looking ahead, but that Alabama game, as it's always been since Kirby took over and when Saban obviously is there in Tuscaloosa, it's going to be a knockout, knockdown, drag out for 4 quarters. I can promise you that.
I like Nancy in Cedartown, which is on the, what do they call it? The Silver Comet, that great biking and running trail goes from Smyrna all the way over to the Alabama line. Carson Beck might be the best pure passer in Georgia history, right behind Aaron Murray. She may be on to something. He's averaging over 300 yards a game, and he's not a real flamboyant guy. He looks like maybe he would work as an actuarial in the insurance industry or a CPA, a mild-mannered guy, but he also doesn't get rattled. Who did he learn that from? Is he kind of a tall version of Stetson Bennett IV?
I think it's sort of just natural, just what I can tell from talking to the people he played with and who coached him when he was at Mandarin High School in Jacksonville. I mean, what we have heard throughout the year, cool, calm, and collected. I wish I had $1 for every time someone drive or something that way. And I think you've seen it. There's been some mistakes. He's gotten a little fired up. Sometimes he got a little fired up on Saturday when they kind of mismanaged the end of the first half. He was looking at the sideline like, what is going on? Let's use these timeouts. But no, I mean, I think that not only has he stayed calm when things haven't gone right, but I think that kind of permeates through this team. That they got one of these leaders that understands, look, when they've had these slow starts, which I think happened more so in the beginning of the season, he wasn't a guy that you saw on the sideline getting fired up, wanting to know what's going on. He just kind of understood the bigger picture and didn't lose his temper or didn't get flustered. At least, he didn't show that he was flustered. I mean, he's the guy for the moment for Georgia. And, we've had conversations. Is there a chance for him to be a Heisman candidate? I don't think so, just with how many quarterbacks right now. I mean, off the top of my head, I would think, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and there's probably some other guys too. I don't know if Caleb Williams will have a shot after the last few weeks. So it would probably be hard for him to make it to New York, but Georgia could not ask any more of Carson Beck this year. He's done outstanding, and he's a big reason why this offense continues to put up points.
Matt?
I just think, you look at recent history and you look at all the great games that Georgia and Alabama have played. It's hard to believe that game, the loser will not be in the Final Four. But that's why, especially if Alabama beats Georgia in a close game, I don't know how you can keep Georgia out at 12-1, whatever they are. But I understand there's a lot of parity at the top these days. I also understand that we need the 12-team playoff badly because there would be all that would be like a seeding game, right? It would determine what my seed is, right? Because I do think the eye test now, what's really hard is earlier in the season, Alabama was looking for an offensive identity. Texas comes into Tuscaloosa and wins that game. But right now, I've watched Texas survive the last 3 weeks, guys. Alabama is better than Texas right now, but you still got to look at that head-to-head matchup and unless Texas loses a game. And I'm going to give you one right here for you. I'm from Iowa. Iowa State at home this weekend is going to give Texas a really tough football game. They're 6-4. They just got bowl eligible. They've done it to them before. The weather's not going to be like it is in Austin. I promise you that. It's the middle of November. It's going to be probably windy. And they just lost their star running back, even though they're very deep. I think Iowa State, that's my upset special of the weekend. They are going to give Texas everything and more. That's my opinion.
I could see that. And I was going to say, too, it gets so complicated with the 4-team.
Yeah.
You look at Oregon and Washington. Washington wins that game. And then the weeks after that, they weren't super impressive. And Oregon was just running through everybody. And kind of to your point, Matt, we should have, I wish we could have done everything in our power to go ahead and get the 12 team this year. This would have been a perfect year for the first 12 team because it's so deep at the top. Someone's going to get left out and have a very good case to be let in. Someone asked me if I was against the 12 team and I was like, no. I mean, we need it badly just because it just brings so much more competition. It makes a lot of these games still mean a whole lot at the end of the season. So it is unfortunate it's still a 4-team, and someone's going to be left with hurt feelings by the time we get to that first full week in December.
Yeah, and here's somebody put a question up here about could we give a top 4, and I'll start with you, Jordan. Give me your top 4 right now because that 5th team, I got an idea who it might be.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say right now. I mean, I would put Georgia 1 after beating Ole Miss after they'd beaten Missouri the week prior to that. I was okay with Ohio State having been 1 in that first ranking because of who they'd beaten. I would put Ohio State 2. I would probably put Washington 3 just because I'm still not that impressed with Michigan. I still think I'd probably put Michigan 4. That 5th team, I guess, might be Alabama. I'd have to really sit. No, actually, I'd probably put Oregon at the 5 and probably Alabama at 6 or 7. Texas right in there as well. It's going to be super complicated coming down the stretch run here. And, we may see a rematch with Oregon and Washington. And if Oregon wins that, they'll have a pretty good case to wind up making that Final Four.
Matt?
I'm moving Georgia up to 1. I have enough evidence after last weekend. I really do.
Yeah.
Though I've never seen a game where Michigan basically ran the football like 32 straight plays in the second half against Penn State. So obviously you have a great line of scrimmage offensive line, and Penn State's got a good defense now. It's not like they're soft. Their numbers speak for themselves. So I'm going to go Georgia 1. I'm going to go a little futuristic here, which I know is not a word, but I'm going to say 2 is going to be the winner of Ohio State, Michigan next week. All right. The loser, that's an elimination game. Okay.
Yeah.
3 for now is Florida State, but they are like Bonnie Tyler holding on for a hero, because I tell you what, Rob, another rival game. When they go to Gainesville in 2 weeks, I think that's going to be a tough game for Florida State, and they're going to probably have to face Louisville in the ACC championship game. Big fans of Mike Norvell, good friend, family friend with Cooper Williams on his staff, but they got some work to do. 4, I would put Washington right now. Okay. And then, my 5, 6, and 7 are all those 3-1 loss teams: Oregon, Texas, Alabama. No particular order, even though I'm biased with my son on Dan Lanning's staff. But right now, I think Oregon, if they win out and play Washington, that becomes a possible elimination game where the winner of that gets in the Final Four. That's my thoughts. And I think, like Jordan said, the winner of Alabama, Georgia obviously is in. My question is, if Georgia doesn't win this game, can they still get in the 4 seed? I don't know. I mean, the SEC's done it many times, but we'll see. This year, it may not happen.
It's going to be really tough, and I will say I just totally blanked on Florida State. I think I would probably have them 5th, just behind Washington. I think that win over Oregon's got to mean something. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard. I don't think you can deny the SEC on the whole is a little down this year.
Yeah,
so you did have Missouri wins and Ole Miss for Georgia, and then if you beat Alabama, that would be big. But yeah, I mean, I think if this is a year where that runner-up in the SEC gets left out, it's kind of set up for that to happen. I mean, Georgia can't feel good if it loses that game and think, oh, well, we're locked in, because I don't think that's going to be the case.
I think a lot of people may have jumped the gun. Remember we talked about this back in the summer, Jordan and Matt. Everybody's looking at your schedule now. It'll be totally different once the season gets here. And Missouri is that team this year. They played Georgia 30-21 in Athens, and then they went back home to Columbia, 5th straight sellout. We had Andy Kelly from KTGR up in Columbia, the Tiger, Andy Humphrey, talking about Missouri Friday morning on the show. And they just beat Tennessee down 36-7. And it just dominated them. Cody Schrader, I mean, what a story he is for college football. If there's a Heisman winner, there also needs to be a Horatio Alger Award winner. And you know who Horatio Alger is, don't you, Jordan and Matt? I mean, he's that great underdog role, that just kind of came. But it's a great story. And Georgia, though, I think after what they did to Ole Miss, a top 10 team, what happened was the national narrative that Georgia hadn't played anybody has done nothing but fuel the Georgia players to play out of their minds. And when Brock Bowers got hurt, the folks on this show, we pointed this out. It allowed Mike Bobo to open the playbook up more, and as players have gotten healthier, you've seen Georgia get better, play better, and expect to win every game. And right now, I got them number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue with their case. And I think, too, you can't argue against Georgia being number 1 and say, well, they beat Ole Miss, but it was close. It wasn't. You know what I mean? A 5-touchdown win. There's no case there to be made against Georgia. So, I mean, my thing the whole time, I think we discussed this after that first ranking, that Georgia was going to be fine as long as it continued to take care of business. And even if they stay at 2, I mean, they're still in good shape going forward, because we talked about that Ohio State-Michigan game. Someone's going to get knocked out there. But, yeah, I mean, Georgia seems to be doing well as far as getting momentum toward the end of the season. We know how big these games going ahead are going to be. But it's going to make for a very fascinating end of the season. I know I, for one, am very excited, not only to see what happens with Georgia, but just all these teams. It's going to be super tight getting ready for that playoff to get set.
Yeah. Matt, I know you got to get off to a meeting and stuff like that. Great stuff as always. We'll talk to you later this week.
Thanks, guys. Nice talking to you, Jordan.
All right.
Take care.
You bet. Jordan, this is interesting. I like Kerry. Auburn's going to beat UAT in the Iron Bowl, so that will take care of one of the playoff arguments. Well, if that happens, it does. I will say right now, though, you got Georgia 1, and everybody wants to put Ohio State number 2. I'm going to put Michigan number 2. I'm going to put number 3, Florida State. I'm going to put number 4, Alabama right now. So Georgia, again, my number 2, Michigan, number 3, Florida State, number 4, Alabama. Florida State, that's a rivalry game, against Miami the other day. They won 27-20. I just checked. They still won the damn game. I think people they don't realize the emotions. And there have been years in the past when they had to call the National Guard in for some of the on-the-field fights between Miami and Florida Atlantic and Florida International and Florida State and Miami and those schools. They detest one another. There's respect in Auburn, Georgia, in LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama. There's respect in those rivalries. You don't see fights on the field in the SEC, except for the meanest rivalry in college football, the Egg Bowl. I mean, that is those Ole Miss and State, they detest the existence of one another. Am I right?
I think so, and I would watch it this year. Mississippi State, they ain't got a head coach. They got nothing to lose. That one might get ugly.
Yeah. All right, let's real quick. I know Georgia's got to, still play Georgia Tech. What's going on over there in Atlanta? Because Georgia's been so dominant, but they look like they've got a pulse on the Tech campus now, and that hadn't been the case for a long time. That's going to be a good game, probably.
Yeah, I think Brent Key's done a really good job. I mentioned this earlier. They need to beat Syracuse this week, and I think that would be huge. And this was Brent's first full season, and they'd be bowl eligible. And you cannot put a price tag on how valuable those bowl practices are. And Auburn's going to have that with Hugh Freeze. The fact that they're going bowling is super big for the future of the program. And I think Brent Key deserves a lot of credit for that game against Georgia last year in Athens. Really competitive first half, and then no secret, Georgia's more talented than Georgia Tech, and they kind of turned it on in that second half and pulled away. But they need to win that game against Syracuse on Saturday. Georgia fans will take over Bobby Dodd. They do it every year. You got Tech fans sell their tickets, let the Bulldogs take over in the red and black. It could be a pretty competitive game, but I think that Georgia is going to impose its will again, and it understands that. Again, it can't afford a sloppy performance. They want to continue to dominate. And, Jamon Dumas-Johnson told us earlier in the year that the Tech rivalry is the one that matters a whole lot to Kirby Smart, that's sort of the top one on Kirby's list. So I'm sure they're going to show up ready to play next Saturday and try to end the regular season undefeated.
Yeah, and again, you look at Georgia, what's fueling them, I think, is so much doubt by a lot of that. And same thing with Michigan. I'm convinced Ohio State went to the NCAA and said, look, they're a threat to us. Get them out of the way. The only two things I don't like about Jim Harbaugh are those birth control glasses he wears, and he tucks in his sweatshirt. But I think he does that on purpose to annoy people. But I think he's a hell of a coach. And I think he's going to be back. And I think that, I know if they've done what they're accused of doing, they're going to have to pay some kind of price. But does that mean they don't play for the national championship this year if they're one of the 4 teams? I don't know. That could be lawsuit city on there. All right, real quick. I know you got to go. You said 20 minutes. Let people know how they can follow you. I want to respect your time. And as always, thank you for taking time to join us. We get tons of people love it when you're on because you've forgotten more than the rest of the free world knows about Georgia.
I'll make sure and Venmo you that $20. I promise you for saying that, Rob. Yeah, okay. Dogs247.com, on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. So, yeah, getting ready for a trip to Knoxville. And I don't know if you saw this, Rob, Dolly Parton's going to be there. So, I mean, if they don't give her a guitar pregame, then what was this all for?
Hey, listen, that is going to be awesome. If you don't like Dolly Parton, you don't like horses, and you don't like puppies, and you don't love your grandparents. That's all I got to say.
That's
Have a
all I
great one,
can say.
man.
You said more than I could ever say.
Take care. Appreciate your time. All right. Listen, man, a lot of cool stuff coming in here. Kelly Leak, Auburn beats Bama. Bama beats Georgia. Then what? 2-loss Bama goes over a Georgia who doesn't win the conference. Wow. What a dilemma we would have there. Would that be wild? Okay. It could all happen that way. Right now, Alabama is playing some of the best football in America. So is Georgia. That's going to be a hell of a matchup, but you still got games to play between now and then. And this is going to be, this is what's so much fun. This is what's so much fun about college football, especially this time of year. And you look around and you see what is going on in I don't know. I'm so fired up. This 12-team playoff is going to be so much fun to watch. And there's going to be teams when we do it, we know what's going to happen. We absolutely know what's going to happen. The 13th team on the list is going to say, well, golly, we got left off. But isn't that what makes it so much fun in college football? And Georgia Tech at 5-5, they've got to beat Clemson. They've got to beat Syracuse. They lost to Clemson. Clemson won 42-21. Georgia Tech 5-5, Clemson 6-4. Golly. So Georgia Tech's got to get a win against Syracuse or Georgia to be bowl eligible. And those extra practices make a huge difference. Got a good feud going on here between Shoney and Carey. We will find out, Rob. Not sure Bama will score 20 points on Ron Roberts' creeper defense. Boy, I think about the creeper van a friend of mine has. It's a white van, paneled van with no windows. The creeper van, hanging around in the neighborhood. You want some candy, little children? The creeper van. Yeah. But that creeper defense is what Ron Roberts put together when he was at Delta State, Southeast Louisiana. It's designed to slow down and impede the progress of up-tempo RPO offenses, okay? Watch it. It's fascinating. RB not allowed to admit whatever Bama needs to happen will happen. RB sticks to Big Ten conspiracy theories. RB, who could that be? I'm convinced Ryan Day, who wanted to pick a fight with an octogenarian, Lou Holtz, after he questioned Ohio State's toughness, and they beat Notre Dame, 14-10 or 17-14, whatever. Come on, Ryan. Ohio State, I'm convinced, has gone to the Big Ten office, which then went to the NCAA and said, you got to get rid of Harbaugh. We don't like him. Okay. You got to remember, let's put things in perspective. Ohio State had beaten Michigan 15 out of the last 16 years on the football field. The last Big Ten championship that Michigan had won was 2004. That was their 42nd Big Ten championship. And then in 21 and 22, Michigan won handily, back-to-back, over Ohio State and won the Big Ten back-to-back years. Ohio State doesn't like that. They don't like being showed up. Shown up. Shown up. Okay, they don't like that. And that's what happened. Say what you want. I'm convinced that's what's behind this attempt to get rid of Jim Harbaugh. People don't like him. Why? He wins. He makes people uncomfortable. You know? And you got a bunch of lazy people laying around on their ass, not doing anything. And somebody walks in like Jacques LaLanne, working out, exercising, looking good. It makes those other people not so comfortable. Jim Harbaugh he's making life in the Big Ten competitive. That's what he's doing. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? It's just the way it is. Look, today, when you are out and about looking for a vehicle, Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis. Service department opens Saturday mornings, 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Store hours, Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Great sales force there. Rusty Howard, Greg Smith, Justin Wynn, the general manager. Red River Auto Group. If you're from Memphis, you know the Dobbs name, John Dobbs Jr., part of the Red River Auto Group. They're as good as it gets in the car, truck, and SUV business. They've got tons of vehicles on stock. Rusty Howard at Red River told me no vehicle payments on vehicles that you buy from them now until next year, till 2024. And they've got tons of vehicles on stock. Was there a couple of weeks ago getting some work done on my truck, on my car. Oh, my goodness. They've got so many good-looking Toyota, four-wheel drive Tundras, the 4Runners, the F-150s, the 250s. And they've got some great-looking Toyota Camrys. 24 service bays. They're there. Lynn Hutchison, the new service manager, he's there 5 times when he was with another dealership. They won the Excellence in Service Award. Check them out, redriverfordtoyota.com. They will deliver a vehicle to you anywhere. Also, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Great looking selection. Second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast. More duck heads than you've ever seen. Over 7,000 pairs of men's, women's, cowboy boots. Boots of all kinds. Good looking boots. Dolce Vita. You name it. Great looking women's clothes. It'll blow your mind when you go in this place. Devil Dog Jeans, Ariat, Wrangler, Pendleton, Schaefer. Listen, Schaefer, all those good-looking clothes you see the cast wearing on Yellowstone, that's all Schaefer, okay? They are the wardrobe consultants for Yellowstone. You want that badass-looking quilted jacket that Kevin Costner wears, John Dutton? They got them for sale at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They are open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Once Thanksgiving gets here, starting next week, Thanksgiving's a week from Thursday. From there through the end of the year, they'll be open on Sundays, 1 to 5 p.m. HewlettandDunn.com, they will deliver anywhere. Also, ECS House Industries, Cherry Valley, Arkansas. Proud to have them as a sponsor. Great folks over there. Cherry Valley, Arkansas, located between Wynne and Jonesboro, Arkansas. 99,000 square foot warehouse, making the best farming equipment in the world. Also, the aerators for the catfish farms. They make it all. Find out where your local ECS dealer is, how you can get a hold of them. ECS House Industries. Check them out on our website, ECSHouseIndustries.com. Great people to work with. High tech, 75 plus years they've been in business. It ain't because they're lucky. It's because they're first class and they always deliver. Proud to be associated with them. Blessed to have them as a sponsor. Chad House and the great folks over there. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break and we will be RB after this. I bet you thought you were listening to an old cheap spaghetti Western, man. And that's the Be Right Back music. But look, one other one we want to talk about. You want to get in shape. Don't wait till you've added 15 pounds, 20 pounds over Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's party circuit, okay? The time to start a good habit is right now. RumbleBoxingGym.com, 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis, open every day of the week. Weekdays, about 5:15, 5:30 in the morning, they're in there. 48 people in these classes. All the equipment that you need to get is right there for you, okay? It's there. You show up. You've got great instructors. They're going to work with you. The classes are 45 minutes long, 15 3-minute bursts. You're doing star jacks, burpees, planks, push-ups, dips, dumbbell work. Then you're hitting those 250-pound punching bags. You'll get in the best shape of your life. You want to get lean and ripped like the actors in the movies? This is what they're doing. I think Rumble Boxing started out in Hollywood. And when the NBA teams come to town like the Lakers, they will come over and work out at Rumble Boxing Gym. 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis, open every day of the week. Check them out on our website, rumbleboxinggym.com. And Rodney Orr is going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. Tighter Insider, $48 a year, folks. If you're an Alabama fan, it is a must deal to subscribe. And look behind me. I feel like the weatherman, saying huge cold front coming in from the Pacific Northwest, combined with that Gulf warmer air and the moisture, we could have snow. I'm really not a weatherman, but look at that map. And I'm pointing it out. Texas, A&M, you've got Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Oh, my goodness, here. You got Missouri, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. We got all 16 teams. You like this map? This was hand-carved by Barnwood Brenda in Batesville, Mississippi. $800, you can get you one. Just text me or put your information on the YouTube, type it in, but she'll make you one of these. Mine was hand-carved out of Cyprus. David Baker, my good friend in Memphis, thought it was a chocolate cake. It's not, but it looks that good. It's absolutely gorgeous. Speaking of looking good, and a man with a crystal ball, and a man who probably knows what the winning lottery numbers are, a proud native son of Mobile, who grew up on the mean streets of Corpus Christi, Texas, having to deal with Texas and Texas A&M fans at a young age. It hardened him into the tough man that he is today. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider TV. Check him out tonight, 6:30 p.m., Tighter Insider TV with Gary Harris. They will be talking about Alabama, all things Alabama, and the big picture in college football. Rodney, Alabama loses to Texas. The world was going to stop spinning on its axis. Famine, petulance, grasshoppers, plagues. It was all coming. Alabama was done. Nick Saban, the dynasty's over. It's time to retire. How many times have we heard that? I've lost track. Here's Alabama right now at 9-1, fresh off of an ass kicking of Kentucky on the road in the 11 a.m. game, which I always like to say favors the visiting team because the home crowd isn't even there till the late first, early second quarter. And now Alabama's got a tough one this weekend against Chattanooga. You just one of those games where it's about you getting better.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important right now because I think it is an opportunity. You can see that Nick Saban says this all the time in these types of games. You can think it's an off day, a day to kind of let the backups have their time, whatever it is. But really, I do think, especially with this team, the way it's still developing and the potential that they have, I think it's important to take advantage of this opportunity that they have coming up against Chattanooga and kind of focus on, getting better, eliminating some of the mistakes that they made against Kentucky, because I do think those kinds of mistakes, when you on the road at Auburn, when you have to play Georgia in the SEC championship game, those kind of things can really they can really hurt your chances of winning the game. So I think there are some things that they have to work on. And as someone told me, Rob, Nick Saban is thrilled that he has something to work on, because now he has something he can keep his team's focus on some of the mistakes that they made and say, hey, this is what we have to do to clean up to be successful.
Well, you and I talked about it all spring and summer coming into the season, how big a deal it was to bring Kevin Steele back, and that's proven to be right. And you also said about Jalen Milroe, he would be the starting quarterback. I did not know until Saturday that both of his parents are United States Marines. I mean, knowing that, that kind of explains a lot with that kid. Now, look, I'm sure he got under, Nick Saban got on him about some stuff about why did you throw this or why did you throw that, and Tommy Rees and all. But it goes along with what I've been saying. I think Nick Saban's going to look back. This will be the favorite team he ever coached. And he's having more fun than he's had in years because it's not on autopilot. And it never really is, but you just said it. He's got things to work on. And that's what coaches, that's why they say, people go, what are you talking about? You just won the game, 56-3, and you're bitching about you gave up 3 points. Well, that's because you have to do that. You don't want the people, you don't want the players to think, okay, that's as good as we're ever going to be. You always got to find something to keep them hungry, don't you, Rodney or Cider Insider?
I think you make a great point because you said autopilot. And I think to some extent that's kind of true. I mean, I think when you're on that kind of autopilot, when you have that kind of team, you're more about just trying to manage everything. I think now it's certainly you're always managing, I think. But this has been a real coaching job. I mean, yeah. A lot of that is managing, but it's also the development of a team. I mean, we've seen some Alabama teams that have come out that have been, great teams from the very start. And, you didn't really see this growth spurt. But I think now this season, what we see is Nick Saban, the coach, more than maybe the manager, because he's not only, again, I want to emphasize, I understand he's had to manage this team along, but the coaching and the development of several of these players and several of these position units has been really impressive, and I think that's obviously not just Nick Saban, it's his staff, and it's having players that want to get better, that have the right attitude, the right mindset, as Nick Saban says, the right buy-in. So I think all of those things we can see evident in this team right now. And I think it kind of hits your point there that now I can't say it's going to be his favorite team or whatever, but I do think that he's enjoying this process of developing this team and how they've responded and how they've kind of started to show signs of growing and developing.
Yeah, Ray in Memphis. Kevin Steele is the difference y'all said he would be. Kevin Steele, third time to be with Nick Saban. I think it was the first assistant coach that Nick Saban hired when he came to Alabama in 2007. And Pete Golding, God love him, I know his family does, he's over at Ole Miss. It was different. Yeah. And it's not, you're right, you're respectful, but I'm going to say it. They were not even close to what they are now. Kevin Steele demanded from the moment he took that job, everybody on this defense better man their ass up. You're out of here. By saying that, it made Alabama instantly got their attention, and you're seeing Dallas Turner and all those other studs on that defense, 8 5-stars in the linebacker room alone, Terry and Arnold. The world we live in today, a big deal was made about Saban, chewing his ass a little bit. So what? That's welcome to, man, that my 95-year-old dad still does that to me. I mean, so what?
Well, he's doing Terry and Arnold a favor. I mean,
absolutely.
Thank
God you said that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what he's doing is that's what we need. We need correction. We need instruction. We need instruction. We need direction. And so he's doing Terry and Arnold a huge favor. You go talk to Derrick Henry or whoever it might be, any of these great receivers they've had, defensive linemen, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, any of them that they've had. And they would tell you all of those things. A lot of what they are now in terms of the character that they have, a lot of that is because of the program that they went through with Nick Saban. So I think he's doing him a favor, obviously, Terry and Arnold, by the way he's coaching him. So anyway, it's they got a tough road ahead, Rob. I mean, obviously this week should be okay, but I do think that you mentioned Kevin Steele. I would say the big thing with Kevin Steele is discipline. And I think probably you look at Kevin Steele as a person, he's a really disciplined person. And I think that all trickles down to, what you see on the field now with these players. They're held accountable and they're disciplined. And I think you have other players. You see these players. If you remember, let's go back to the Texas A&M game. You remember when Braswell blocks the field goal, picks it up, returns it for a touchdown, and Dallas Turner is flagged for a personal foul, blindside block. And what did you see Deontay Lawson do? He went over there and immediately says, hey, come on, man, let's keep our head in the game. We got to be thinking here. That's when you got players coaching other players. That's when you know that the coaching staff's doing a really good job of getting their message across.
Yeah, you're right. You have to have that because you can't be around them all the time. And Kevin Steele, he's the right guy at the right time at Alabama. And Terry and Arnold and all these players are proof that it's a lie when people say you can't be tough on these kids today. Yes, you can. You can. And they are craving it. I mean, there's no better example.
I think it's more important now than ever.
And yeah, exactly. And that's why I get so disgusted with these people that say, you just can't go off and be tough on these kids today. They can't. Yeah, they can. Obviously, you don't have children when you say something like that. And I'm not saying you, Rodney, but that's it. The kids crave it.
I think it's
you gotta have it.
It's kind of an excuse we've gotten in the rut of using, but but look, Rob, I'm really excited about the rest of this season. I think that I think it's okay to look forward to that Auburn game, right? I mean, that's going to be a real. How much has Auburn improved? I mean, but now again, I understand that the teams they've beaten here in the last 3 weeks are kind of lower echelon in terms of if you stack them up. That's not being, but at the same time, Auburn won those games. I mean, you go on the road and you hang what you did on Arkansas. That's a really impressive performance, I think, from Auburn. But so it's always a challenge, man. I'm telling you, going down there is going to be a real challenge to be able to go down there and compete against Auburn, because that atmosphere, I mean, and let's be honest, there's some crazy things that happen down there. You've seen them. I've seen them. We've all seen them, So that's going to be that's the next big step to me.
Yeah. And, I like Henry and Lawton, Oklahoma. I think that's home of Fort Sill. Train hard to be hard. That's, we've got these guys. When you watch these guys and their little, skinny jeans on ESPN on the weekends, and then I see Roman Harper, and Roman's going to be on the show with us tomorrow morning. He just texted me. I really like that guy. You probably know him, and I've gotten to know him here in the last year and a half. I call him the truth broker. You get him on the show. Now, he really is not trying to, to gain fans or friends. He's just saying, I'm going to tell you the truth. But I love that people, these kids today need it. You're right. More than ever. And when the coaches demand it, better play, my way or the highway, they'll get it. If you lower the bar on the hurdles, that's what the expectation will be. That'll be the new standard. And I'm loving it. That's why I don't care what you are, an Alabama fan, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, Memphis, it doesn't matter. You got to love the hard-ass, tough coaches. Because what I've seen with Alabama this year, and there's another one, this is a good one. from Gunner in Memphis. The Bama fan base is seeing what player development is all about. Rodney, I'm going to start now with you here on the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport, 2 locations open every day of the week. Now, remember, Sundays, they're only open 3 to 5 p.m. at Camp May Veterinary Clinic. That's where they house the dogs and the cats. They have their own swimming pool outside. And if you've got a bunch of cats and they live together, they have connecting cat condos. They're really cool. May Veterinary Clinic, Dr. Waller May, Dr. Guy May, their father, Dr. Wayne May, started it all 60 years ago in 1964. They're the best at taking care of your dogs and your cats and all your animals. And if they can't, they will refer you to the people that can. They know everybody at the Auburn University College of Veterinary Medicine out on Wire Road. They know the folks over in Starkville at Mississippi State. But they're the best. They're the finest people you're going to meet. Proud to have them, proud to be associated with them, and blessed to have them as a sponsor. The May Veterinary Clinic sponsors the Tighter Insider Report with Rodney Orr. Rodney, talk now about the offensive line. Your thoughts. Going back to the summer of 21, you said on paper it was the best class they'd ever signed. A lot of that, those guys aren't there, but there's new guys in there, but they've come together and they're playing some really good football now. Yeah,
they really are. I mean, I think they found their right combination. They moved Jaden Roberts in there at right guard in the game against Texas A&M where he started. I mean, what a monster he is.
6'8", 340.
He's a big dude. I tell you this, and the thing about him is he's not just so big, Jaden Roberts. It's not just that he's big. This guy is cut. I mean, you're not talking about a big, heavy guy, fat guy. Yeah. You're talking about a guy this guy's built. And he plays really well. He plays with a mean streak, and I think he's learned it. He's worked hard, to kind of learn his assignments and become consistent. But that offensive line is better. They're making a lot of improvement. Caden Proctor at left tackle's made a lot of improvement. So they're running the ball better, more consistently. We're seeing that, and I think that's certainly something. And I think Tommy Reese has done a fantastic job. Sometimes it takes a little time to kind of go through part of a season to develop, that chemistry with the offensive coordinator and what they want to do offensively, what kind of is good for the players like Jalen Milroe. And, you just can't really pat Jalen Milroe on the back enough with his development over the last several weeks, because a lot of that is him. A lot of that has just been his own desire and effort. And and you know what? The guy took being benched in that South Florida game, for that game, and he bounced back from that. And it's just a really determined guy, and I think he brings a lot of great leadership to this team. And we're really, I think, starting to see that.
Rodney, you know how to read a room, you know how to read people, pretenders from contenders. Give us your assessment of the maturation of the kid from Katy, Texas, a suburb of Houston, Jalen Milroe. I did not, again, realize till Saturday, the son of 2 United States Marines.
Yeah, like I said, I really admire Jalen Milroe. He faced a lot of criticism, and I even go back to that Texas A&M game last year when he really got bombarded after the game with criticism. But at the same time, it's just so difficult the first game like that. I know he played against Arkansas, but I'm talking about as a starter. And you have to look and say, hey, wait a minute now. Yeah, he turned the ball over 3 times, and maybe he had some other deficiencies. Same time, he threw 3 touchdown passes in that game. There's a lot of potential there. And you knew about his athleticism. We've been hearing since he got here that he was a Lamar Jackson type athlete. And people don't laugh. He really is a Lamar Jackson type athlete. I'm telling you, there's some differences. I'm not talking about athletically. I'm talking about, I think Jalen Hurts was a really mature kid and confident in his own way. But Milroe's a more gifted kid than Jalen Hurts. I'm just going to tell you right now, he's a better passer at this level right now than Hurts was when he was in his second year. He's a much more athletic kid. Even in Hurts, that's saying something. I'm telling you that physically, Jalen Milroe has all the tools. And now you're starting to see the things you talked about, the character, from his upbringing with his parents. I think we're seeing all of those things have contributed to his development. I just can't, really say enough about, where he is now. He's still got a lot of room for improvement, and I think that's kind of scary if you're an opponent. But he's got a lot of room for improvement. He made a throw across his body the other day, and hopefully he learns from that was intercepted. So, but if he can learn to consistently on 3rd down and 5, whatever, if he'll check down some more, he's got some guys open. He made a throw down the field against Kentucky that was, almost pulled down by Jalen Hale, but he had a guy open at short. These are the kind of plays that hopefully from the video or film study, he'll learn, hey, I got this guy. Let's take it. Let's move the chains. And that's what Nick Saban was referring to after the game when he said, hey, we've got to take what the defense gives us more consistently. So if he again, he's got a lot of room for growth, Rob, but he has also the right attitude that he wants to get better. In other words, he's not a guy that thinks he's arrived.
Yeah. He's looks like he's going to be around a while. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. Do you attribute this when he was benched against South Florida? I think you brought this up because this is what I said at the time, talking to a friend of mine who knows Alabama quite well. I think he was trying to say, hey, to the Bama people, okay? And maybe Milroe did something to make him angry. Said, I'll sit him against South Florida, and we'll play those other 2 guys, and I'll show you what we got behind him. If you all think that the guys behind him are that much better, and I'll prove my point. That's a big risk. I'm not saying this is exactly what happened, but it's kind of what it looks like happened. That, you know what? There you go. They're your number 2. They're your number 3. We're in practice every day. We see it. And I think whatever was going on was fixed. And I think the same thing has happened at Auburn with Hugh Freeze, with Robbie Ashford. I think there's stuff that goes on during the week that nobody really knows. But I think sticking with one quarterback, and the quarterback doesn't have to look over his shoulder on every play and go, oh, was that good enough? You start popping. You're overcoached, overcorrected. And that's why Jalen Milroe is settled in as the man. And now no one talks about those other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First of all, I see that graphic there about Jaden Daniels. And whoever sent that in, yeah, you're right. The guy's a phenom. I mean, he's a phenom, and hard not to say he should win the Heisman. So
yeah,
I agree with your LSU fan there, but no, look, I really think that what happened was after that Texas game, Milroe had a lot of inconsistencies in that game. He threw a couple of really major picks, and there was already some doubt about, okay, is he going to take the next step? We need somebody that can, do that for this team. And I think Nick Saban looked at that South Florida game and said, I'm going to see what my other guys have. I'm going to look at Buckner. I'm going to look at Ty Simpson, see where they are. We're going to use this as an opportunity to find out, okay, is one of these guys the guy? We're going to see how they respond in the game. And I think after the game, he came to the conclusion that, what, we're right in the beginning. Milroe's our guy. And, Milroe came in and since then and has really made a lot of improvement over the last few weeks. So I think that's kind of how it unfolded. It played out really well. Now, listen, it's not a lot different than 2015 when, Alabama, and I know Lane Kiffin really wanted to give someone else a chance, and they benched Jake Coker for the Ole Miss game, if you remember, in 2015, and started Cape Cooper Bateman. And the game kind of started getting out of hand, and they brought Coker back in the game. Saban made the decision, hey, I was right in the first place. Let's put Coker back in there. And Coker became a different quarterback. So I think sometimes these things that happen, they end up working for the better for the player.
Yeah. Hey, I agree. Look, we have run out of time on this May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport. 2 locations open every day, drop off and pick up only for the pets at Camp May Veterinary Clinic, 3 to 5 p.m. on Sundays. Tighter Insider report. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. The preamble to the Constitution does not read "we the government." It reads "we the people." Think about that. Let that resonate and soak in. It is the people that make the difference. Rodney, let them know how they can subscribe to your great magazine and follow you and what y'all will be talking about tonight. As you say, I never know till I get there, but maybe you got an idea.
Yeah, it's TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year. You can get instant access with the credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. Gives y'all our premium information, but also our all sports forum. That's our community of Alabama fans. I mean, it's a lot of exchange. It's a lot like your show here, Rob. I mean, we're just exchanging, talking Alabama football, recruiting, basketball, whatever it is, right there on TighterInsider.com.
Well, it's great stuff as always. And look forward to talking with you next Tuesday. A lot of college football folks, don't get worried. I know it's about middle of November. We got another 2 months of college football. And then after mid-January, when the playoffs are over, starting around the 10th or the 12th of February, somebody will start spring practice, and we'll be right back in this again. Okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please support our sponsors and go out and do some kind work for people today. Who cares? Who knows? But God knows always. Goodbye.